Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United transfer news as Emi Martinez, the Aston Villa goalkeeper, sends a come and get me transfer plea. Will that be enough? Is it actually the goalkeeper Ruben Amorim wants? We have suggestions that it actually isn't. Also, what does that mean for Marcus Rashford? Could a swap deal happen between Villa and Manchester United? He's certainly facing a setback this morning with terms agreed between Nico Williams and Barcelona. So the Barcelona dream is over for Rashford. How does he get his World Cup England hopes back on track? Also, we've been linked to Kudus. What a load of I won't swear. We've got a few other bits to get into as well in relation to Osimhen, the striker situation as well, and a little bit on Mbeumo and why that deal is probably taking a little bit longer. It's common sense. Certainly. So lots to get into. Also, we've got Ben Jacobs live on the show at midday today. So get involved with that. Obviously, he's dropped this story about Martinez last night. He's live on the United Stand at midday today, talking strikers, midfielders, goalkeepers, the lot, budgets, etc., etc. But let's start off with this story from last night. So Martinez, let's call him Emi. Emi Martinez has made it clear that he is interested in moving to Manchester United this summer. Due to their PSR position, Aston Villa aren't refusing to rule out of a sale. This coming in from Ben Jacobs. It could take up to 40 million for Aston Villa to sell Martinez. Man United is still to make a decision regarding Onana's future. Well, look, we've had a week this week of I think it was The Athletic who said it. A couple of other people have said it as well, that Onana is expected to stay at Manchester United. Onana himself said last weekend that he doesn't know what's happening with his future. The reality here is that Amorim wants to move him on. And the reality is that Man United are bad at selling, especially when a player's got a big contract and a big wage. You're on 140 grand a week, which is the equivalent of 250 grand a week for a goalkeeper. 140 grand a week is massive money. You've still got 3 years left on your deal and nobody wants you apart from Saudi. So you basically sit there and go, I don't want to go. Don't have to go. Don't want to go. I'm here. I'm going to make the decision that and it's weird at Manchester United because in Onana's position, you actually decide whether you get another chance next season. Not the manager, not the club. You decide. It's weird. I'm staying here. I'm going to prove everybody wrong. I thought I was the manager. I thought I was the CEO. No, I've got the contract. I've got the wages. Check it out. You can't remove me. I'll be staying. You can't replace me. I'm going to have another go in goal for Man United this season. It's my choice. And that's what it comes across as because it's very, very clear that Amorim wants his own goalkeeper. It's very, very clear that Jason Wilcox is a good technical director on the footballing side and knows we need a new goalkeeper. But removing Onana is key. And that's why last night when I saw the Emi Martinez story, I was like, well, it's a great story and it's a true story. But where in that does it say that Man United want Emi Martinez? Where in that does it say that Man United have got 40 million to buy Emi Martinez? And where in that does it say that Onana's going? And unfortunately, and we should get more out of Ben at midday, but unfortunately, Emi Martinez wanting to sign for Manchester United is the same as any player that wants to sign for Manchester United. You know, maybe the Monaco striker wants to play for Manchester United. I want to play for Manchester United. Maybe you want to play for Manchester United. Just because it's a player that we'd like to play for Manchester United doesn't change the fact that Manchester United need to want them and Man United need to want to have the money. And I think that Emi Martinez would fit Man United, pardon the pun, as a goalkeeper, like a glove, but where do we get that money from? And we're certainly not going to have Onana and Emi Martinez in our squad when we've got no European football. I don't think you'd have Emi Martinez and Onana in your squad, even if you had Champions League football, Wimbledon to play and everything else. You know, they're too high profile. So the biggest problem we have on this story is, Emi Martinez, personality. Argentina won the World Cup because of him. He's an experienced Premier League proven goalkeeper with the personality to be a Man United goalkeeper. He's probably one of the top 5 I would pick. But it's annoying. It's frustrating. I wish we had this with the striker. I want to come to United, Osimhen, etc. In fact, interesting thing that Rio Ferdinand said about Osimhen. We'll talk about that in a bit. But Martinez wanting United's great. How do we do this deal? And that's the thing I would say. Also, what I would say about the goalkeeper is, and obviously you can just say this is speculation, whatever, but the indication we've always had from Portuguese sources that have spoken to us in the past about Sporting, etc., people quite close to Sporting, is that Amorim would go for Costa from Porto. That would be his goalkeeper that he would want. Now, I don't know. I think it's worth running a poll on that, because I don't know that Costa is... let's just call it either or. I don't know that Costa of Porto is better than Martinez. I can see the attraction, and I reckon he might end up at Man City. But all I would say is, whether Amorim wants Costa and whether Martinez wants Man United, you've still got that barrier. I mean, the ironic thing about Onana is he's terrible in goal for Man United, but this is probably the best block he's ever made. It's probably the best stop he's ever saved. You know, he's stopping us getting a new goalkeeper, which is ironic because we want to get rid of him because he's not very good at stopping anything. So, yeah, look, I would be very happy with Costa from Porto or Martinez from Villa. Very, very happy indeed. But the barrier is Onana. I don't really care. You know what? If Onana left tomorrow and we were going to go for Martinez or Costa, I'd say let the chat decide, even though you won't decide. I don't really care. I'd be very, very happy with either of those goalkeepers. Obviously, you've got a risk with Costa because he's never played in the Premier League before. I've seen him make mistakes, etc., etc. But there's a lot of goalkeepers that have come into the Premier League that have never played in the Premier League before and done well. Martinez would have the personality as well, I think, definitely. Dan in Denmark says, why are footballers' contracts like this? If I underperform and have a bad relationship with my boss, then I'm gone. Too much player power. They've always been like this, mate. They've always been like this. Opinion on signing ter Stegen as the goalkeeper, says Obi-Wan. I mean, I think people would be very happy with that. Very, very happy with that. Martinez is old, says Clemmy. Let me just double check his age, because I genuinely don't think he's old. 32. 33 in September. I mean, it's not that old for a goalkeeper. 40 million's a lot of money for a goalkeeper at 32, but it's not old for a goalkeeper. I'd say for a goalkeeper, 32 is the equivalent of probably being 27, 28, maybe even 26. Goalkeepers tend to come into their prime in their early 30s. So you'd get another 3, 4, 5 seasons out of him, I would say. Yeah, ter Stegen would be interesting, Obi-Wan, especially as they're signing Garcia at Barcelona. Scott Palmer says, have you seen what you saw with Gyokeres yet or not? If you have, has anything changed? You need to tune into the shows, Scott. I've said it about 20 times. What I saw on that Sunday from somebody very prominent in the footballing industry was Gyokeres to Manchester United is red hot. Watch what happens. And, you know, I still think something can happen. But I'd be lying if I said what happened at the weekend hasn't. It's like the fire went out a little bit, you know. I was really excited last week and I was really confident. I think I went to 7 out of 10, so 70%. And I was working on my tan. I said I take my top off and run around the garden if it happens. But honestly, Scott, it's a good question. I don't think a lot has happened with Gyokeres, other than we had that horrible bullshit story on Saturday that ultimately ended up being nothing. There seemed to be this mad scramble on Saturday to make out that Gyokeres had snubbed Manchester United for Arsenal. And then ever since Sunday, we've had, no, he hasn't. He hasn't snubbed them at all. Nothing's actually changed from last week. Arsenal would be favourites if they don't get Sesko, but Man United have got a good chance. And it was like, I almost feel like I was reading some of the stuff that Fabrizio said and other people said on Saturday night, and then I've listened to what they were saying before and afterwards, and I'm like, it was almost like they all got drunk or something and just spouted like all last week. Fabrizio was saying that United are in daily contact with Gyokeres, expect something in the next few days, almost hinting at a here we go. Saturday, it's like he's choosing Arsenal. Saturday night, he hasn't rejected Man United. Last couple of days, still very much open. But on Saturday night, it was like United unlikely, very unlikely now. And it sort of flipped back again. So what I would say about Gyokeres is that And it fits in with Martinez as well. Apparently, George Mendes is now representing Emi Martinez. Now, I don't know how true that is. I think it was something that Fabrizio said. But George Mendes is now involved in the Gyokeres deal. And apparently, George Mendes is also involved in Emi Martinez. So, I mean, look, George Mendes for Manchester United last summer did a very good job. Agate and Yoro were directly down to his negotiations. George Mendes, this agent, or as we call him, super agent now because he oversees deals. Imagine if he delivered Martinez and Gyokeres. That would be absolutely fantastic. Martin Lewis, I'm just going to remove you. I don't know whether you're doing it on purpose, but I just can't be bothered with people like you. So basically, it's just basically coming in saying, what's the news? Like, we're 10 minutes into a show, literally talking about news that's coming and about the goalkeeper, and we're going to talk about a few other bits in a minute. And we've only just started the show. Impatience. Get yourself on TikTok if you like 30-second shit, swiping left and right. I actually do. I do, actually. It's quite addictive. But anyway, I tell you what, TikTok's great for my old reactions. I'm not a narcissist. I'm just saying when I go on TikTok, I'll see an old stuff that I can't remember and I'll watch it and then it just gives me loads more. But anyway, what we're saying there is around George Mendes, could he deliver Martinez and Gyokeres? I'd say probably not, but what a summer that would be. But in relation to Gyokeres, I don't actually think anything's massively changed from last week to today, other than Saturday just really made most of us just feel a bit deflated by a deal that we were a little bit excited about. It's not over with Gyokeres. I actually think it's got a lot more to run. My observation on the Gyokeres deal, whether it's Arsenal or Man United, is it's got a lot more to run. I think that favours Manchester United if we've got to sell to buy and we're working on Mbeumo. I think it suits us that the Gyokeres deal goes on for a while. And I think fundamentally it comes down to Sesko. I saw what his agent said, and they're very much about we're not competing with anyone. We do things the right way. We believe in respect. We believe in a certain way of conducting our business. And if it doesn't happen, then we'll stay at Leipzig. We want to treat Leipzig well. And we want to behave in the right way with the club that wants us. And if the right project comes, we will go. And I thought, you know what? What a refreshing way to conduct your business as an agent. Because what they're basically saying to Arsenal is, stop pissing around with Gyokeres. If you want us, then you want us. If you want Gyokeres, go and sign him. But we're not being part of your machine that Berta is actually creating. Berta is lining up Gyokeres and Sesko and trying to play them off each other to get the best deal. They might miss out on Sesko because basically what Sesko's agent is saying is that we're not going to be part of that. You either want us and you want to pay a good price for us, or go and do the deal that you're doing. And I think Arsenal and Arteta do want Sesko, but they're having to negotiate. And I think that has an impact then on Gyokeres. So this deal, when it happens, for whoever it happens, with Sesko and Gyokeres, I feel that United are being delayed because of that. But it probably suits us because we know we need to sell to buy him. As our CEO said, he thinks it's good that deals take a long time. So we'll wait and see. On Mbeumo, though, just a little bit of an update on him. There are still people trying to predict when we're going to get the here we go. And I think that they, that would be very, very interesting. But I think with Mbeumo, there's probably an element here of obviously negotiation. Man United trying to get the best deal. We'll be trying to save 5 million somewhere on Mbeumo. It'll be, we know we're going to pay 60 million, but we'll be trying to do it in, money via, Amazon vouchers or IOUs. There'll be something United are doing to try and make money. Bitcoin or something like that. They'll be doing something to try and save money, and we understand that. But as Mr. E says, it could be 1 to 2 weeks before we get Mbeumo done. But I also think there's probably a logical explanation on the Brentford side as well. If I was Brentford, Mbeumo's so important and money is so tight and they haven't got a new manager yet. Are they waiting for the new manager to come in before Mbeumo goes? More importantly, are they looking to get a replacement lined up before Mbeumo goes? Because I actually think Brentford could be facing relegation next year. I think losing Mbeumo and losing Thomas Frank is quite significant for them. So I wouldn't be surprised if Brentford are also saying to Man United, we're not doing this deal until we've got somebody lined up as well. So that could be something to do with it. Could Watkins be a possibility with Villa's finances? He's not young, but he'd be cheaper and give us goals. I don't think Ollie Watkins is available for cheap at all, Keith. I think Ollie Watkins reminds me a little bit of Marcus Rashford. There's definitive quality there, but is there a market for him? He's 30, he's on good money, and Villa will want good money for him, and I don't know where Ollie Watkins goes. The striker market is diluted this summer. There's a lot of strikers available, and I don't know where Ollie Watkins would go. So that would be... I would take Ollie Watkins if Gyokeres went to Arsenal, and you know, I'd take Watkins over Ekitike because he suits us better, but I think he'd still be very, very expensive. Do you think they will want Mbeumo in before sorting Onana out due to being a fellow countryman and putting Mbeumo off, says Christopher? I mean, I couldn't give a toss about Mbeumo and Onana being fellow countrymen. You don't keep a goalkeeper like that just because he's got the same, you know, plays for the same national team. Still laughing at the Onana's best stop joke, says Mirror. And that was off the cuff. It wasn't meant to be funny. Just Football says, stop player hate. They have contracts. United board. Stop being a prat, mate. You should change your name from Just Football to Just a Prat. What are you talking about, player hate? I can't deal with people who, when you basically say that you don't rate their player FC, they call you a hater. I don't buy into this. Like, it's football, and you can have an opinion on somebody without it being hateful. Christopher, I've done that one. Lee Cape Town, hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well, Lee. Hi, Mark. Any goalkeeper is better than Onana, not Costa at all. Martinez rather, but as much as we want Onana, is digging his heels in like any other player. Lee, stop being a hater. Stop being a hater about Onana, Lee. What? Stop being a hater. Like, all I'm getting there is hate. No, you're right. We can't do anything until Onana goes. Let's not be in denial. Preferring Arsenal is a snub, says Simply Red. Let's not be in denial. Preferring Delap to Gyokeres is a snub. I think you need to remember stuff like this. We went for Delap before Gyokeres. So it's okay for us to go Gyokeres plan B, but it's not okay for him to come to us as a plan B. Hypocrisy on a Thursday morning. We've done that one. Gyokeres deal still feels possible, says Damien, but he has got options. George says, I understand there are financial restraints, but do you not view the midfield as a higher priority than striker, as there is more creativity and service with Cunha and potentially Mbeumo? I think this is a great question, George. I'd love to know what everybody else's thoughts are about the midfield. I certainly think the midfield is an area that Man United need to look at. We're going to ask Ben Jacobs about this live at midday. Anything in the midfield. I find the midfield, I mean, I've got news to get into, but let me just, I don't mind shifting off, and George did do a super chat for it. In relation to the midfield, all I've ever been told, and we fed it straight into you, is that if Man United wants a midfielder, someone's got to get sold. Now, we said to you a couple of weeks ago that what we were told is that Casemiro or Mainu need to go. Collier could go as well, maybe on loan, but Collier's future at United ain't looking great at the moment. Certainly if we buy a midfielder. So we've got a roster of Bruno, Mainu, Collier, Casemiro, Ugarte, and we're only playing domestic football. We haven't got European football, which can add... Look, if you're in Europe, you're playing minimum probably 15 games, 16 games, maybe 14, 12 if you're shit. That's a lot. 12 games is a lot. So we're not playing those extra games. And if United want a midfielder, they've got to remove a midfielder because the roster's already too big. I think the balance of our midfield is terrifying, George. I mean, Bruno to me is not a midfielder. Mainu plays in Bruno's position and Bruno never doesn't play. So that means you've got to play Mainu out of position if you want to... Basically, Bruno's playing out of position in Mainu's position and he never gets subbed. So therefore, Mainu, if he's going to play, is going to have to play out of position. You've then got Casemiro coming towards the end of his career, Collier who can't stay fit, and Ugarte who needs a big second season. So we've got 5 midfielders, but the balance isn't right for me. So I definitely think we need a midfielder, but who are we linked to? Lots of people say Hackney from the Championship. I've only ever heard that as a fan theory. Edison has completely and utterly disappeared. Not him actually. You know, he's safe and well. He's on holiday. But I mean, as a transfer target for United, ever since we didn't win the Europa League, that's disappeared completely. Although he hasn't signed for anybody else yet, he is linked to Saudi. Adam Wharton is a pipe dream in relation to no chance. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't expect anything in the midfield, but we'll certainly be asking Ben Jacobs about that. We got Van der Sar when he was 34. Let's get Martinez, says Drew. Will says, would you take Sanchez if Chelsea go for Maignan again? No, absolutely not, Will. I don't want anything from Chelsea. You know, if Chelsea said, do you want a Krispy Kreme donut? I'd say no, because you'd probably shit in it. And I was up at the Manchester office the other day, and one of our producers came in with some Krispy Kreme donuts, and I love them. And I'll often have two. But if Chelsea came in with a load of Krispy Kreme donuts, I'd throw them in the bin or out the window. And everyone would go, why? And I'd say, because it's from Chelsea. It's probably looks nice from the outside, but inside they've pissed in it or shit in it or something. Wouldn't go anywhere near anything from Chelsea, thank you. And Chelsea fans know what I'm talking about. HKA says, if we're going for Ekitike, who's 100 million, why not go for Isak or at least try to persuade him? I know I'm sounding stupid. I'm sure I saw something about Isak and Man United this morning. I might have been dreaming. I mean, there's no chance. There's absolutely no chance. And as Baz said, what about the Kudus story? So this is coming from Jacob Steenberg, I think, who writes for The Guardian. Jacob Stinkberg. That story stinks. Kudus is not coming to Manchester United. I saw Laurie Whitwell saying last night that there are rumours that Man United might use Cunha and Mbeumo as a number 9 next season. Well, let's prepare for relegation. That you can't keep putting people out of position. Mbeumo is not a striker and Cunha is not a striker. Now, they're good enough to play there, but specialists in specialist positions. What we're going to do, put Harry Maguire up front for a few games as well. We need to buy a bloody striker. We didn't need, look, if we don't buy a striker and we buy Mbeumo and Cunha, I would say, why did we buy 2 number 10s that we didn't need when we needed a striker? It's great to sign Mbeumo, but I'd have been happy with Cunha and a striker rather than 2 number 10s and not a striker. We need a striker. We better bloody buy a striker. We need a specialist. But we're not buying Kudus. I don't know where that story's come from. It's the same people who keep linking us to Eze and Semenyo. We're not in for those players. We're not talking to them. We're not in advanced talks with them. We're not considering them. We have bought Cunha and we are negotiating for Mbeumo, who wants to sign for us. We are not in for Kudus. We are not in for Semenyo. We are not in for Eze. We weren't in for Cherki. We've gone for Cunha and Mbeumo. They are plan A's. I will put my hands up, and I think everybody needs to acknowledge that. Cunha was plan A, Mbeumo is plan A. That's who we're going for. We're not in for Kudus. I don't know why that story has come in. He plays for West Ham, if I've pronounced his name wrong. Just Football, can't even spell Pratt. Okay, I'm not getting into a back and forth with someone who can't spell Pratt. It's the easiest word in the world. English might not be your first language, but it's really easy. Pratt, Pertra. It's not got 2 A's in it. Pratt. Sounds like a bloody sheep. Everyone says Anthony's the worst signing. Mudryk is even worse, says Oddmar. We didn't sign him, mate. And George, we've done that one. Thank you very much as well. Let's talk about just talk about Marcus Rashford for a moment, because really interesting. We have to acknowledge outgoings, of course, as much as incomings, especially when we need outgoings to facilitate the incomings. And what that means is we've bought Cunha, we're negotiating for Mbeumo, but beyond those 2 deals, we are going to need to sell players. Now, I saw Beth's video yesterday about Garnacho posting about PSG. I mean, I'd be stunned if he went to PSG. I mean, they've got an abundance of wingers. Why would they need Garnacho? I still think Garnacho is probably going to end up at Napoli, because I saw Chelsea linked to somebody else yesterday. I couldn't get my head around it. Pedro of Chelsea. Pedro of Brighton to Chelsea. They're also looking at Ekitike. They're also looking at Gittins. They are looking at lots and lots of players, so I don't see where that's going to end up. But what I will say is, with Marcus Rashford, Nico Williams is going to go to Barcelona. So that is the end of that. And I have sympathy with any player that sort of puts their, well, maybe not Tevez or Di Maria, but look, Marcus Rashford wanted Barcelona in January and they wanted him. They couldn't offload Fatty, and it sounds like you're being weightist when you say that, doesn't it? They couldn't get rid of Fatty. It's the only time you can say it and not get into trouble. I'm going to say it again. So Barcelona really did want Marcus Rashford in January. I'm laughing like a kid. Look, be serious. Barcelona really did want Marcus Rashford in January. They wanted him on loan till the end of the season, and Rashford desperately wanted Barcelona. That's why he ignored the Italian clubs at the start of January and anybody else, because he was waiting for Barcelona. And remember, he hadn't played football since the middle of December. Realistically, if I was Rashford, I would have been like, I want to move at the start of January because I need to get back playing. I haven't played for ages. But he really wanted Barcelona. Barcelona wanted him. He waited till the end of the window, and then they couldn't get rid of Fati. Ansu Fati, who was at Brighton. Probably pronouncing his name wrong. So ultimately, he ended up going to Aston Villa. He did quite well. But there was this belief that because Barcelona wanted him in January, they wanted him again in the summer, and they did. But then Nico Williams went, I want you, you want me, let's move. And Rashford sort of sat there now going, that's another dream gone. So, I mean, Robert McCormack's not here, I don't think, but he would be saying they still might want to buy him. They still might want to go for him, but in a way, I think it's a good thing for us. I think he would have been a good signing for Barcelona, but obviously Nico Williams is better. But what was going to happen with Barcelona is that they were going to play games. They were going to go, we haven't got any money, we're going to wait till the end of the window. I would rather know that Barcelona aren't going for Rashford in the middle of June than the middle of August. So Rashford's now... who am I to advise Rashford? Who are you? I mean, I'm not his biggest fan in the last 18 months anyway. I think some of his performances and effort and everything hasn't been where it can be. You know, having been one of my favourite players, I think he's, it's time to part ways, of course. But I do think he's a bit unlucky because he nearly did get the Barcelona move and it wasn't his fault. They've now gone for Williams. But what Rashford needs to do is look at what he did at Aston Villa and realise you don't always get what you want. And in his career, he's had a lot of things go well, playing for Manchester United, playing for England. And there's a lot of options beyond Barcelona. So he's got to find another option very, very quickly because he will want to be in the World Cup next year. He will want to be in the internationals for England in September. And he just won't be in that squad if he's still at Man United at the end of August, he won't be in those squads. So he's got to find himself a move and he needs a pre-season. Now, some people are saying, what about an apology to Amorim? I mean, look, it could happen. I'll be honest. I'll see through that like most people will. That would be because he can't find a move. It would be, people talk about Gyokeres, choosing, Arsenal over us. I mean, Rashford wants to leave. And if he stays at Man United and apologises, it's because he can't get a move. I don't think he'll do that. I think he's got way more respect for himself. I also think Ruben Amorim doesn't go back when he's made his mind up. So I just wonder whether Aston Villa might enter the party. Emery really liked Rashford, and Rashford had a good time at Villa. I think they parted ways because Villa didn't get Champions League football and Rashford wanted Barcelona. But if he can lower his wage demands, then I think there might be an opportunity there. Newcastle have been linked to him, but it's in the Sun and Sky. And why would Rashford suit Newcastle? Like, Rashford needs to play left wing. They've got Harvey Barnes and they've got Anthony Gordon. So unless Anthony Gordon's going to Liverpool and they're going to go for Rashford, I don't see that happening. So could we do something with Aston Villa? And a swap deal is what I was thinking about. And I think swap deals are very, very difficult because you've got all of Emi Martinez's entourage, you've got all of Rashford's entourage, and everybody has to come together on one deal. They're really difficult to do. Also, Manchester United will probably want to pocket pure profit. But in the case of Rashford, it might not be such an issue. I don't think we're going to see a swap deal involving Marcus Rashford and Emi Martinez, but it's far more viable than it would be for Garnacho, Osimhen or something like that. So I think the Rashford situation is not ideal. I really wanted him to get the Barcelona move. I think it would have been interesting. I think he'd have done well there, and you can understand why he wanted it. But you can't trust Barcelona in the transfer window. Barcelona do what's best for Barcelona. And he had a good run at Villa, and there won't be a shortage of people looking at Rashford. The great thing about that Villa loan is nobody can look at Rashford and go, but he's lazy and he doesn't turn up for training. Which is basically what Amorim was saying. He did well at Villa. Could have done better, but definitely could have done worse. So you're going to look at Rashford and you're going to go, I reckon there's something there. The barrier will be his wage. But I think if you're Marcus Rashford, you can't just go, I'm going to sit on my arse at Man United and earn 300 grand a week for the next 3 years, because your career's going to die. So he's got to swallow the bullet and go and find a football club. So look, the negative is that he ain't going to go to Barcelona, and where's he going to go? But the positive is he's still got 3 weeks before the start of pre-season to get out there and do some work and find a club. Stephen says, with Arsenal losing out to Nico Williams, why not go for Rashford instead? Says Stephen. I still think if I was Arsenal, I would look at Rashford and Garnacho and go, there's something there. Because Rodrigo's going to stay at Real Madrid now. Nico Williams is going to go to Barcelona. So the striker, the winger market isn't that good. Bayern might look at him as well, although I think they're looking at Mitoma. But it could be a good market for Garnacho and Rashford. Paul, thank you very much for your super chat. Appreciate that. Irish Whiskey said we bought Van der Sar at 34 and he was a legend. Patrick Lynch is in the house. He says squad construction is a real issue the last few years. Some players that don't quite fit the league or system, despite needing a goalkeeper and striker, they seem to be the last on our to-do list, says Patrick. So what you're basically saying is that we do need a goalkeeper and a striker, but we have got players in our squad that don't suit the system or the league. Yeah, I mean, as I said, I think I'm not convinced that our wingers are the right wingers, whether they're fullbacks or wingers. I don't think they're right for Amorim's system, but we're going to neglect that. And I certainly think the midfield isn't right for Amorim's system as well. But that's partially on Amorim. You know, he could have pushed Bruno out the door. He really likes Bruno. So I think that the midfield, as much as I don't think it's balanced, it is the midfield that Amorim wants. I want Lemons, best goalkeeper in Europe, says Christian, and I think I have a better chance of pleasing my wife than Garnacho going to PSG. Hope he doesn't think he's going there, says Pengas. I only see United selling 2 players, Garnacho and Anthony. Anyone else will be loans at the end of the market. This is going to be a problem, says Edward. Yeah, I could definitely see Rashford going on loan, and I 100% think Sancho's going on loan. English lessons from Mr. Goldbridge, how to spell Pratt, says Yuv. I'm confident Zirkzee as a striker flourishes this season, says Class of 99. Zirkzee has got a part to play at Manchester United, and we shouldn't dismiss him or Mount. They will be here next season without a shadow of a doubt. But I'd rather see Zirkzee playing in the number 10 position rotationally than seeing. I don't like the idea of Zirkzee as a striker. I mean, it's not improbable. It's certainly not impossible, but I do think that he's more creative than a finisher. Snowball says, Rihanna, disruptive players should be frozen out, but is doing that to a model professional who's not quite at the level tantamount to workplace bullying or victimisation. Some people see it like that, Snowball. I would see it as, I've told you to go, you won't go, so I'm not using you. You know, it's not school sports day. You don't get a winner's medal when you run last. You know, you're slow, mate. Rajaf says, check out my super chat at the beginning. What about a midfielder on loan with an option to buy, says Ben. Give us a name. Give us a name. I think that's the thing I would say about there. We need a name. Corby says, hi Mark, from Sydney. Just curious if you know where Terry got his trophies from. Maybe you can borrow United one of the Premier League ones for 2028. You never know with Terry. You know, probably a car boot sale, I don't know. Onana contract, not his problem. United board to blame, says Just Football. Rajaf says, Nico Williams to Barcelona is huge. Could they win the quadruple? Also important for us as it kills Rashford to Barcelona, says Rajaf. Thank you very much. I wanted to bring this in, actually, just on the striker situation. I don't want to get misquoted on this. So, this is Rio Ferdinand, the United legend, YouTube influencer, and proposed director of football. This is a direct quote. Number 9, they already know who I want. The comments know. The people who know who I want, who I would go and get. Osimhen. It looks like he's turned down Al-Hilal. He must be waiting for Man United. I don't know if Man United are going to come. That's the problem. I'm glad no one's ever got him involved in the football club. Yeah, I like Osimhen. I like Osimhen, but at what point do these ex-players like actually stick their head in the real world and take a breath of reality? At what point would you say publicly Osimhen's waiting for Manchester United? I mean, he's clearly not waiting for Manchester United. If he wanted Manchester United, you just make it clear you want to come to Man United, and Man United would go, let's talk. Nothing's changed with Osimhen from what we were saying last week. Man United will be interested in Osimhen, but he's got to fulfill 2 major requirements. 1, he's got to say, I want to come to Manchester United and no one else. And 2, he's got to get realistic on his wages. He's done neither. He's never done neither. So he's not waiting for Manchester United at all. And it's just hyperbole nonsense at a time where we need some real talk. Yeah, you may as well do a TikTok on that. I'm hearing Man United that he wants to come to Man United. If he wants to come to Man United, it's deal done. It's here we go. Like, United would be all over it. It's why we've got Cunha. It's why we're going to get Mbeumo, because you've got 2 players, rightly or wrongly, who have said, that's the club I want to play for, Manchester United. And yeah, we're negotiating with Brentford, and yeah, we negotiated with Wolves, but primarily both those players said, I want Man United. I don't want Spurs. I don't want Newcastle. I want Man United. Osimhen, if he wants Man United, could very easily be a Man United player. Because if Osimhen said, I only want Man United, he'd be wearing a Man United shirt for that first game of the season against Arsenal. Because Man United aren't bloody stupid. Amorim might want Delap or Gyokeres. I don't think he wanted Delap, actually. I think it was just a cheap option. But Osimhen's playing the field. Osimhen's basically going, where's the money? Which is why Saudi's still back as an option. It's why Galatasaray might be where he ends up, because the demands he's making, I don't know how Galatasaray are affording it, by the way, but fair play to them. But yeah, Osimhen, I would love him at Man United, but there's just no way that he's waiting for us. We've never, and the thing is as well, we've never really been in for Osimhen. And I think we're not in for Osimhen for the same reason no one else is in for Osimhen in the Premier League. There's this general consensus that everybody's being played to try and secure the biggest deal, which still could be Saudi. George says, are you concerned that the current transfer focus is very system and Amorim-centric when there is unfortunately a realistic chance he doesn't last? I like Amorim, but could be worth considering. You blame Ineos for that, George. You can't blame anybody else. I think one of the things that excites me about... One of the things that excited me about getting Ruben Amorim was that he was so different to Ten Hag in style. So I looked at it and went, if you're bringing a manager in like that, it's so different, you've got to back him. And if you're going to back him, you've got to sell a lot of players, you've got to buy a lot of players, open heart surgery. But you're right. If it goes wrong, the next manager's not going to play the same way as Amorim, so you've got to break it all down again. Look, I listened to what Paul Scholes said, and I don't necessarily agree with it, but I also understand it. And he basically said, look, this is not a system for Manchester United. It's just so different. It's so tunnel visioned, and effectively, if you sack him, you're in a big problem because you've got loads of players that are specialist players for a certain position. But that's not on Amorim. That's not on you. That's on the board. And that is why I said last night, I think all these Zooms saying Amorim will be gone by Christmas, that can't happen. Like, as bad as it gets, we can't be sacking another manager halfway through the season because this is such a distinctive style of play that you've got to stick with it for a period of time. And like you say, you can't say to Amorim, I'm not buying you any players because I might need to sack you in the future, and then I've got a load of players that don't suit the next manager. You may as well sack him now. We're going to commit. We're going to buy these players, but that means that they've got to commit for a longer period of time. I don't think Rashford, Garnacho or Sancho should apologise. This club is a nonsensical mess and the players are reacting to it. Glazers out, says Keel. I wouldn't apologise to the Glazers, no, but I think Marcus Rashford would have to apologise to Amorim based on the fallout they had in January. I think that's what would have to happen. Why can't we pull a Mourinho on Sancho? Let him rot in the reserves, force him out. I know I'm dreaming, says Stephen. And John says, I feel like Rashford will go on loan again. With Arsenal losing out on Nico Williams, why not Rashford, says Stephen. I've done that one. What do you think of Alonso changing his formation, says Robert McCormack? Not a lot, really, Robert. I've seen some of the hipsters. So basically, obviously, Xabi Alonso at Leverkusen played with a sort of 3-4-3, didn't he? And at Real Madrid last night, he didn't. So you got a few hipsters going, look how a good manager changes his formation when he goes to a big club. But ultimately, that is just such a... Again, there are so many ways to observe football, and not at any point did I think, oh, Alonso's changed his formation, so should Amorim, because it's all dependent on the interview that takes place. Now, maybe Florentino Perez said, we play with a back four at Real Madrid. Is that going to be a problem? Absolutely not. I'm not that locked in on 3-4-3. I'm happy to play a back four. It's an honour to be Real Madrid manager, and I want to keep the traditions going. And that's why that's happened. Whereas at Man United, maybe they interviewed Amorim, and Amorim said, look, I play 3-4-3. I've done it all my career. I'm always going to do it. Is that going to be a problem? And Man United went, no, it's absolutely fine. So they're not comparable, Robert, is what I would say. Alonso playing a back four at Real Madrid when he didn't at Leverkusen might be because he's looked at the players and that's what he wants to do. It might be because that's what he's been told to do and he's okay with that. But at Man United, it's very, very clear that Ineos has gone, yeah, we want you to play the 3-4-3. So I don't think you can look at the two situations and go, Amorim should play a back four at Man United, because it's all dependent on the conversation that's had with the recruitment team. And Amorim from day one has always said, I'm a 3-4-3 manager. If he'd have gone to Man City, he'd play a 3-4-3. So, you know, you can flip that around as well. What if Alonso does really bad at Real Madrid and when he gets sacked, everyone goes, well, they shouldn't have forced him to play his system. So, yeah, I think my observation on it is that it's just irrelevant. And again, it takes us back to the morons who just keep talking about the system like he's playing a system that's never been used before in football. Do you think Martinez can happen? I've seen some shitty source about we've approached Martinez, but look, until Onana gets moved on, we ain't approaching anybody. That's my real feel on that. But of course I would take Emi Martinez at Manchester United. Absolutely. Absolutely. Wirtz is doing his medical with Liverpool. Oh, great. Gyokeres, Arsenal. I don't know. The only reason Gyokeres is Arsenal's plan B. It's very clear that they want Sesko, so maybe that's what this summer's all about. Plan B, plan B, plan B. Just having a quick check here. Someone said there's a bit of breaking news, but I'll have a look. No, it's not. Sorry about that. So yeah, we're live with Ben Jacobs at midday, so we should get some new stuff coming in. Do you reckon Osimhen will sign for Man United? I mean, I wouldn't say it's beyond the realms of possibility, but I think if he prioritised and wanted to sign for Man United, we'd sign him. Like United at the moment, I don't know whether you've ever seen Oliver Twist. Well, Man United are like Oliver Pissed. No, I'm joking. Oliver Twist is a classic Charles Dickens novel. You may have seen the film. And basically, he goes bowl in hand and asks for some more food, right? And we are a bit like Oliver Twists at the moment. Like, we've gone to Liam Delap and we've said, please come to us. He's gone to Chelsea. We're now there with Gyokeres going, please don't go to Arsenal, come to us. You're telling me if Victor Osimhen, like Rio says, is waiting for Man United, if Victor Osimhen's agent rang up and said he really wants to join you, do you think United would be there going, please, Gyokeres, choose us? We'd be on it, like, you know, hungry person on cake. Nearly said something else. So, no, he doesn't want to come to Man United. We'd be all over that deal if he wanted to come. I don't know why he doesn't want to come. Is it we're not offering enough money? Is it we're not in Europe? I don't know. Really interesting poll here. Either or, Costa or Martinez. Amazing. We've had 12,000 votes, which is nearly 80% of the people watching the show. We've had 12,000 votes. Costa of Porto, Martinez of Villa. Who would you rather have in goal? 50-50. I'm happy with that because, to be honest with you, I don't care either. I would go for either. I don't mind. When we didn't sell Bruno, I kind of lost interest, says Keel. I mean, I have said multiple times, I think we need to move on from that. But in all honesty, I shouldn't have said it. We don't need to move on from it because we won't move on from it. We'll keep coming back to it because it was a very significant moment in our summer transfer window. And it would have changed a hell of a lot of things if he'd gone. I wouldn't say it's anywhere near the same as Qatar or Sajim, but obviously I wanted Qatar because it was the full sale, it was the debt gone, and I sometimes think about where we'd be now if we had. I mean, look, they might have made Rio Ferdinand director of football, in which case we'd be bloody relegated, but I still look at it and go, I wonder what would have happened there. In a very different way, I do look at the Bruno thing and go, if he had gone and we'd got that 100 million, what would we be doing now? But we, you know, as I said, it's really important that the manager gets what he wants, and he wants Bruno. I just wish he'd play him as a number 10. Thanks everyone for watching. I better go because we are back live in an hour with midday with Ben Jacobs. Don't forget to tune into that. John says, to be fair to Xavi, no pre-season, just thrown into a random tournament, maybe just getting settled. Yeah, exactly, John. It is very early days for Alonso as well to get his team playing a 3-4-3. Great comment. Okay, we'll see you at midday. We're live. I'll speak to you in a bit. Take care.